Conservative MP Caroline Ansell. Good morning to you. Thanks for being with us today. Is he right, though? Voters are really angry about sewage and they don't think that the government is doing enough. Let's start with that.
Well, I'm not surprised that when he came to Eastbourne, he wanted to talk about water quality during the local election campaign, because actually the main concern in Eastbourne has been the financial failure of our Liberal Democrat council, who had to pivot to a government bailout and are still operating under those kind of terms and conditions where they're reporting into the government on their investments and on their spend. And very sadly, in fact, the finances have been so crippled, so weakened, that unlike our neighbouring councils, Wealden, for example, and Hastings, they've been able to relieve and release the lowest income families from the pressure of paying council tax. Our Liberal Democrat council is still charging council tax to those who are most financially vulnerable in the town. So I'm not surprised he wanted to focus on water quality rather than the failings of his Lib Dem council.
In fairness, though, I mean, we do get a lot of evidence that people are concerned about the state of rivers and beaches. So what are the Conservatives offering voters who are worried about that? And there's been a fair bit of evidence. It's been in the news again this week, and lots of people commenting on the radio, Caroline.
You're absolutely right, Joe, which is why we are committed to seeing water quality enhanced and improved, and most particularly in places like Eastbourne, because our tourism hospitality, that's absolutely the jewel in our crown. People love living here because they're living by the sea. And on Saturday, just last Saturday, as a measure of how important a priority this is, certainly to me and to local people, the Director of Environment from Southern Water came down to Eastbourne, met with our sea swimmers, and he was able to unpack, if you will, the sort of blueprint ahead, the plan for action, and how we're going to see our bathing waters return to good and excellent. And one of the really important insights that came was not about this sort of sewage outflows, but a really important local issue, and that is around misconnections. So where people do perhaps extensions or new builds, and in error, they connect, say, the toilet to surface water drains instead of the sewage system. And the impact of that is serious and significant. So piece by piece, road by road, outflow by outflow, so that water is now chasing down all these misconnections. But there's a whole raft of work coming down the line and huge investment. I think, listening to opposition parties, particularly the Liberal Democrats, frankly, they're more interested in votes than water quality. And their plans, one estimate says it'll take 1,000 years for their proposed tax to raise the necessary monies. We're talking serious cash.
Okay, let's talk about something else. Let's talk a little bit about what we were saying at the end there when Ben asked Sir Ed about what he said regarding the patient arriving at Eastbourne Hospital. What did you make of Sir Ed's response?
I was fizzing mad, to be honest, because yet again he's kind of throwing the family under the bus for his own errors here. His story proved to be wholly wrong, and I can only imagine the distress of this family, because the one thing that was true was they lost a loved one. They lost a member of their family, and their grief and their situation has been used as political football. There are challenges, of course there are, in our hospital setting, but for the hospital and the ambulance trust and all those who were really unhappy to hear that account from Sir Ed in the chamber, and the pressure then that created for us to understand what had happened. And what happened was that he had misled the House, and he's misled again. He said at the first opportunity he set the record straight. Well, about 24 hours after his story fell apart, he took down all those social media posts calling on the government to apologise. That was 24 hours later. He apologised to the House 8 days later. Can't trust him.
You're breaking up ever so slightly, but one final question in relation to that. We are seeing record waiting times in the NHS, so shouldn't government take some responsibility for those?
Well, we're not just taking responsibility, we're taking action. We're taking action with plans, we're taking action with investment, taking action on workforce. Undoubtedly, undoubtedly there is pressure and stress, and there's a significant backlog that we're moving through after the pandemic. I think people understand that.
Thank you very much indeed for joining us, Caroline. We're much appreciated. That is Eastbourne's Conservative MP, Caroline Ansell. And before that, we were hearing our political correspondent for Sussex, Ben Weiss, in conversation with leader of the Lib Dems, Sir Ed Davey. Travel